Hey everyone. So our semester industry project we decided to do was on AmerisourceBergen. So we're going to roll in and meet the team that we have here. So first off, my name is Anthony Pennington. I am a marketing major at the Darla Moore School of Business here at USC. So combined with our group, we have two marketing majors, a finance and supply chain major, and a human and resources major. We have Madison Murray, Sam Hall, and Sabrina Zekas. So we're going to roll into the learning objectives here. So just kind of mapped everything out. It was more of a guide. So our project process was guided by the core elements of our strategic management process. We'll be taking a look at how external forces may have impacted our company as well as the internal ones as well. So we'll then go on to explain how our competitors as well as the competitive environments within the healthcare industry operated, and acknowledge some of the challenges that are faced by ABC. So understanding this company, AmerisourceBergen, competitive advantages, and the different things with that allowed us to recognize the effectiveness of their strategies for creating and capturing some value. So it's kind of tied all together. We will also discuss some strategies that AmerisourceBergen has employed in order to create value and achieve really an ultimate competitive advantage, which is pretty important. So rolling into the table of contents here, kind of give you a layout of what we decided to do. So have a pretty broad business overview, some history of the industry and the company, some external analysis, the pestle model. So we get to take a look at that, the internal analysis, kind of how everything operates. So got competitive advantage, just a good overview of that. Industry structure, same thing. Business strategy, the AFI framework, which kind of gives you a good little insight on some stuff. Corporate strategy, global strategy, kind of big picture, stuff like that. And we got suggestions for improvements, kind of our thoughts on the whole deal and, what can be changed. COVID-19, pretty big right now. So talked about that a little bit with the different things that they've done and what they could do. So organizational design, just kind of the structure of the whole deal and the whole company and the industry. And then we'll end it off with a conclusion. So we're going to go into the business overview. And I think Madison is going to talk about the mission statement here.
Thank you, AJ. AmerisourceBergen mission statement reflects what they intend to achieve and what they hope to bring to the healthcare industry. As stated, they are leaders in the healthcare and have been making an impact on the industry for many years. They are able to do this through innovation and keeping their focus on growing through value creation and planning for the future. They are able to create value through their customer experience and through supporting their manufacturers and providers in many possible ways. Sabrina will now be moving on to take a look at the history of AmerisourceBergen to see how they got to where they got today.
AmerisourceBergen has been excelling in the pharmaceutical industry for over 100 years. It all started in 1871 when Lucien Napoleon Brunswick became an apprentice to a pharmacist. In 1882, Brunswick partnered with Wheelock Finley, which is a wholesale drug company. After Finley's passing, Brunswick takes on F.W. Braun as a partner in 1887, and in 1907, Brunswick buys out Braun and he renames the business to the Brunswick Drug Company and focuses on wholesale drug distribution. In 1922, the Brunswick Drug Company reaches a record high as a result of World War I. In 1928, Emil P. Martini opens his first pharmacy in Hackensack, New Jersey, and in 1947, he founded the Bergen Drug Company. In 1969, the Bergen Drug Company buys Brunswick Drug Company and renames the company Bergen Brunswick Company. In 1977, Alco Standard enters the drug distribution and purchased a major drug wholesaler called the Drug House, which operated in both Pennsylvania and Delaware. In 1979, Alco Standard acquired many other pharmaceutical companies, and Kaufman Latimer became part of the mix in the efforts to expand distribution. In 1993, Bergen Brunswick begins alternate site distribution, which later became an industry-leading specialty offering, and they called it the entrepreneurial venture. In 1994, Alco Health Services changed their name to Amerisource Health Corporation. In 2001, Amerisource Health Corporation and Bergen Brunswick Corporation merged and finally became AmerisourceBergen. Finally, in 2010, AmerisourceBergen goes global and becomes the leader of the biopharmaceutical industry, and they have presence now in over 50 countries. So some pharmaceutical industry background. So the pharmaceutical industry discovers, develops, produces, and markets drugs or pharmaceutical drugs for use as medication to be administered to patients with the aim to cure them, vaccinate them, or alleviate their symptoms. The overall goal of the pharmaceutical industry is to control and eliminate disease around the world. The industry's profits are estimated to be around $300 billion per year. Pharmaceutical companies produce both generic and brand medications as well as medical devices. As you can imagine, there are many regulations that need to be enforced in this industry. Pharmaceutical industry regulators are consistently seeking to monitor various drug-related concerns, including safety, quality, quantity, market flow, research and development incentives, pricing, and patents. So now moving on to some AmerisourceBergen services. AmerisourceBergen provides specialty services to their customers, including improving business performance through consulting, inventory management, product recovery, and outsourcing solutions. Purchasing optimization with distribution and purchasing services at 99.9% order accuracy. Elevating the patient experience, optimizing patient assistance, and implementing transitional care, specialty, and ambulatory pharmacy strategy, and improving safety by helping pharmacies improve compliance and reduce medication errors. Now moving on to some partners. AmerisourceBergen partners with some outside companies in order to enhance their services. A couple of their partners include Pharmacy Healthcare Solutions, which is a consulting service that helps hospital leaders and other staff with changes in healthcare. ISC, which helps manufacturers develop supply chain strategies. ION Solutions, which is a purchasing organization in the oncology field. And Securo Surgical, which produces surgical instruments and orthopedic implants.
Thanks, Sabrina. So now we're going to talk about external analysis. External analysis, and the way we're going to talk about it is using PESTEL. So PESTEL has 6 factors: political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal. So now I'm going to pass on to Madison and start us off with political.
The first part we looked into for AmerisourceBergen, otherwise known as ABC, was the government regulations in healthcare. These regulations have been made to increase drug utilization, reduce costs, prevent misuse, and expand access to health insurance. The DEA, as well as other agencies, regulate compounding, storage, purchases, and distribution of pharmaceuticals. Certain regulations include the wholesaler must have a valid license and follow strict regulations in sales, packaging, and distributions. ABC may be facing some upcoming costs incurred due to new regulations being introduced, but changes in tax benefits to encourage wholesalers to follow regulations could make up for the cost if they choose to follow these regulations. The second point we thought was political donations and influences in government policymaking. According to AmerisourceBergen's PESTEL analysis, ABC donates money to political candidates running for office in order to advance the interests of the company. In 2016, the company had made 2 donations of $2,500 each to U.S. Representative Patrick McHenry, who is the chief deputy whip of the Republicans. There was then another donation of $9,000 given by AmerisourceBergen's lobbyists to many McHenry political committees between April and June 2016. The donations were legal, but have come to spotlight in recent years because of the opiate crisis and other issues. Since this has been noticed, society is unhappy with the lawmakers, which could push U.S. administration to impose a blanketed ban on such contributions, which could then impact AmerisourceBergen. Sam is now going to talk about the economical factor of it.
Thanks, Madison. So, even though that they have been struggling in the public outlook politically, they still seem to be doing well economically because they are so vital to the system. They are a drug wholesale pharmaceutical company, or they distribute pharmaceuticals to pharmacies, private practices, and hospitals across the country. So the governing bodies in this market are the FDA and the DEA, and they regulate and audit ABC often to make sure that they are in compliance with all regulations, and it's an intense process. In terms of threats in the market, there's a declining reimbursement rates for pharmaceuticals right now, and there's negative economic trends around the world with COVID and just in general. But there are some positives in the market, and these can be seen in the high demand for goods and the government willing to increase the ease of doing business. What we mean by this is that given the current situation, this pandemic, and the distribution of vaccines is going to be vital. This gives them a lot of economic promise and sets them up in a situation where they could have a big boom in the next year or so. That's why we gave them the business cycle of expansion. From my experiences with the company, I worked there as an intern. I was talking to one of my managers, and they were saying that they were hiring more people. They're expanding their company because they know that there's going to be a big push when this vaccine comes out. So economically, they're in relatively good standing. Now I'm going to pass it on to Madison.
There are many things to consider when evaluating social culture for ABC. Demographics and skill levels of the population, class structure, hierarchy, and power structure in society, education level as well as education standards in AmerisourceBergen's corporation industry, culture, entrepreneur spirit, and broader nature of society. Some societies encourage entrepreneurship while some don't, attitudes, and leisure interests. The key things in AmerisourceBergen that we examine in our social culture is the aging population of the United States. With the aging population, ABC will face challenges such as resource needs will continue to increase across healthcare settings. The incidence of obesity will continue to increase. A shortage of healthcare professionals is expected. The diversity of caregivers lags between the growing diversity of patients. Care has been focused on a single disease versus addressing comorbidity. The sustainability and the structure of federal programs in relations to increasing age population are a concern. Changes in family structure may lead to fewer family care providers or caregivers. Adapting and adjusting to the Affordable Care Act poses challenges. Over the past 2 decades, healthcare costs has increased exponentially. A number of factors are driven these massive cost spikes, most notably the aging population and chronic disease such as diabetes, hypertension, and chronic pain. Prescription drugs make up a big chunk of the rising cost. For example, $101 billion spent on diabetes in 2013 was just for medicine. Not only does aging population affect the healthcare industry, throughout the things I've stated earlier, but it affects society because many patients do not take care of or take their medicine as properly instructed. Solutions AmerisourceBergen has considered include digital therapeutics. Since patients skip their medicine for a variety of reasons, topping the list is fear of potential side effects and the cost of prescription drugs. Yet the reasons don't stop there. A patient's illness, alignment, or symptoms doesn't always respond to prescription medications immediately, which causes the patient to believe that they are not working or they do not need them. Patients may be confused about how properly administered medications fail to prioritize treatment or experience psychological resistance to prescribed regimens. The medical industry is responding by implementing a number of technology-based strategies to encourage patients to take their last pills prescribed to them. The Harvard Business Review calls that these strategies digital therapeutics or technology-based solutions that can have a significant clinical impact. Capturing data with mobile devices and sensors, these technologies can deliver predictable and real-time alerts and information through web browsers, apps, and medical devices. As the cost of sensors continues to plunge, companies are experimenting with smart packaging and pills dispensaries that remind patients to take their medicine. These devices alert patients with sounds or flashing lights. Some of them dispensaries the medications and record the event. Some companies are developing pills with ingestible sensors that can track complements as well as the effects of the medication. For the second thing of their solutions, wearable technology has become promising solution for medicine or medications adherence may reside with these wearable technology. Patients, along with broad segments of the populations, have warned to be wearable in recent years as wide adoptions advice such as Fitbit, Apple Watch, and Samsung Gear demonstration. Results from patient engagement surveys reveal that 49% of the patients around the world would be wearing these or open to wearing these devices. These technologies can track everything from step-to-step rates, heart rate, to skin temperature and body oxygens, and can potentially alert wearables to the efficiency of medication. After taking a look at the social culture aspects and seeing how they can address problems through technology, we'll be going on to the next slides about learning more of technology advances. As technology advances, competing companies become stronger through research and innovation, and this is something AmerisourceBergen has to take into consideration since it could affect their competitive advantage. But along with companies becoming stronger, it also allows for mobile apps, sensors, and wearable, as well as AI and smart labels to improve health outcomes and decrease cost escalations. The most effective approach to using technology for enhanced outcomes is to take multiple phased approaches to engage patients. Technology can also have an impact on product offering. As the cost of sensors continue to plunge, companies are experimenting with smart packaging and pills dispensaries that remind the patients to take their medication. Technology can also impact on product offering. As the cost of sensors continue to plunge, companies are experimenting with smart packaging and pill dispensaries that remind patients to take their medicine. When integrating into medical systems, wearable devices from smart glasses to wrist displays to a variety of connected sensories can lead to a better health outcome and efficiency and lower costs. Sam's now going to lead us into the legal implications.
Legally speaking, they have a few influencing factors: FDA and DEA regulations, data privacy regulations, and legal disputes and litigation. In recent history, they've had a relatively big lawsuit where they almost lost one of their biggest clients in Walgreens in a legal dispute with the state of New York over the opioid crisis. They formed a partnership with Cardinal Health and McKesson, who are also two of their competitors, and offered $70 million in a settlement to New York, the state of New York. New York declined this settlement, and the legal proceedings are still going on. In terms of the protection, I know that they have a very strict compliance regulation. Every single one of their workers in the warehouses has a tracker on them, so they track their steps and make sure that they're not deviating from their path that they're supposed to be on. There's a lot of drugs in there that do cause addiction and are dangerous to if they got out. So they have very strict regulations to make sure that this doesn't happen. Pairing this with constant supervision from audits from the FDA, DEA, and internal audits that they do themselves, which each happen every 3 months, and they are very thorough. The FDA and the DEA come there and they spend a week and a half, 2 weeks just going through their file work. A consideration they might want to think about, some considerations they might want to consider is to maintain high levels of process compliance, to avoid all issues in terms of legally, and make sure that they are as compliant to the regulations as they need to be. And then I think they need to continue to build relationships with the FDA and the DEA. Positive relationships in this area will make audits smoother and more of a painless process, because that way there's just transparent, clear conversations. And screen all legal documents of prospective clients prior to conducting business. A lot of times they get fake clients that call them and try to conduct business because they're trying to buy an X number of some kind of drug. This is a big problem that they can run into. So they need to make sure that they're paying attention to the details when it comes to clients. And I'll pass it on.
Appreciate that, Sam. So the next section we'll be looking at here in the pestle model is on environmental. And this one's kind of a tricky one just because each company, each industry has a different kind of process and the different impacts on the environment and just kind of what they do on a day-to-day basis. It can really add up to be a large impact, total. So some of the things we got to look at, there's, like I said, multiple different factors that got to be considered with your industry and what you're doing on your day-to-day. Some simple actions can cause major impacts over time. So just say, you're running a truck more than once where it's supposed to go, it's going to add up. So, and then your profit impacts, the regulations and the rules and the new laws that are being enacted in this day and time have definitely helped the environment out, but it has also made some profit and some revenue issues with these companies just having to switch everything over and get in accordance with the laws. So some major issues related to the environmental impacts that we're looking at here, they relate to climate change, obviously. A lot of research done on that lately. New laws and regulations for pollution, recycling impacts to endangered species in certain areas, just depending on what your operations are and just runoff. The type of energy being used, so what you're running your trucks for, your factories, how you're powering all your facilities. So some different markets have different standards and obviously different regulations that impact their profit margin across the board, really. So as corporate citizens, we have to understand how our work affects the world that we're living in right now around us. So that's why we make continual strides in sustainability, energy efficiency, and really reducing greenhouse gas emissions. That's been a big one placed on here lately. So it's also why we have a place deductive like focus towards impactful corporate giving and medical product donations. So a supportive culture for the employees is big on this one.
Now we're going to take a look at internal analysis. In terms of internal analysis, we're going to take a look at what AmerisourceBergen or ABC does well. They're one of the top of the market supply chain distribution process companies in the world. They're ranked 10th in the Fortune 500, and they're renowned for what they do in the United States. They have very transparent, consistent market strategies. They try to be as clear as possible to the public because of the opioid crisis and crises like it. They want to make sure that they have a good relationship with the public. They own a few digital entities and operate them all on under the same system. And the social media is also well connected as well. At the same time of being trying to be a more marketable company, they've seized a lot of market share. They've continued to progress in the market and grow as a company while maintaining lean. Now I'm going to pass it on to Sabrina.
So we're going to take a look at the balance sheet for 2020. As you can see, thus far in 2020, AmerisourceBergen has over $44 billion in assets, over $45 billion in liabilities, leading them to a minus $840 million in equity. Sales have increased by about 5% a year for the past 5 years, and the current ratio has stayed constant. According to the balance sheet, almost half of the current assets are in inventory, which leads us to wonder if the company has any slow-moving inventory. If they're having an issue accessing inventory and cash and receivables, then they might have trouble meeting vendor terms.
In terms of distribution and supply chain process, they're really at the top of the market for what they do. They call their process sophisticated supply chain. They've developed this by putting a lot of investment in it, increasing the reach, and making sure that that impact is really felt in communities across America. So over the past 10 years, they've invested over $800 million into their supply chain to make sure it was a more efficient process. They've done this by hiring very experienced managers and distribution center managers and other people who help streamline the supply chain process. So by doing this, they've increased their reach. They supply 100% of U.S. hospitals, over 67,000 community practices, and 34% of retail pharmacies. Their biggest client is Walgreens. Walgreens gets a majority of their business from ABC, and it's a huge client for them. In terms of impact, they've provided pharmaceutical projects to areas all over the U.S. They affect millions of patients every single year. The way you have to think about it is they have everything that we need. So if a hospital and there's people there who need a certain drug, ABC supplies that. If their process line stutters at all, they can, when people are in situations where they're minutes away from dying and you tell them that it's an hour late, it causes a lot of issues. There's a lot of pressure on the system, but overall they do a really good job of maintaining it and making sure it runs as efficiently as possible.
All right, now taking a look at the marketing strategies, here's for social media. AmerisourceBergen is present on several different social media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Most of their posts are pretty similar across all platforms. These posts include pharmaceutical industry trends, relevant news articles, and company news. LinkedIn is a little bit different because there's a lot of focus on jobs, recruiting, and hiring information.
Their marketing strategies for their digital entities is all streamlined through a management system called GeekHive. They've set up a system where they work on unified and consistent online brand presence, aligned and integrated marketing technology stack, and cohesive user experience across websites, customizable modular features and functionality, and faster go-to-market website launch capabilities. If you go to either it's the Lash Group or ICS or AmerisourceBergen's websites, they're all relatively the same. They make sure to keep it consistent and keep it clean, so that way it's easier for the user to find the information that they desire to learn about the company. They do a very good job of posting many documents and articles about what they've done and how they've made some falls, and also at the same time made huge improvements that helped a lot of people. At the same time as making sure that they are marketable, like I said earlier, they've increased their market share. So they're the second largest drug distributor in the United States. It's earned itself on they've earned themselves 10th spot on the Fortune 500. They were 11 or 13 the year prior. So I think they were 13. So making that jump was big for them. In terms of revenue, in just 2019, they made $179.6 billion in net revenue, profiting $855 million, giving them a market value of $20.4 million. They've done this by building a group of clients that are consistent and committed to AmerisourceBergen's process and understanding the high level regulation and precision in their process. Their biggest clients are Walgreens, CVS, and Winn-Dixie stores.
Now we're going to be looking at the competitive advantage. AmerisourceBergen competes against a few key companies. They compete against Owens & Minor, who is a healthcare logistics company, Henry Schein, who's a provider of healthcare products and services, Cardinal Health, who is a healthcare service company, McKesson, who is a healthcare services and information technology company, and Pfizer, which is an American multinational pharmaceutical company. And I'm sure many of you have heard of them because of the COVID-19 vaccine. They've been pretty present in the news lately.
their key competitive advantage is the revenue per employee. So companies like Pfizer are their competitors, but at the same time, they're also clients because they produce pharmaceuticals and they rely on ABC's supply chain to distribute it for them. Uh, so they're key competitors, and where they really make their money, even though Pfizer is still a competitor, is against companies like McKesson and Cardinal Health. Both of these companies are not very lean. They have a lot of employees compared to ABC. ABC has 21,000 employees and made $179 billion in net revenue. This is $13 billion of revenue per employee. Compared to McKesson and Cardinal Health, which clock in at 3.3 and 4.4 respectively, this is huge. It's a huge gap, and it allows them to maintain lean supply chain and make sure that they are as efficient for their shareholders as they can be. This has created a lot of value for their shareholders as they become a more and more profitable company and have been able to perfect their supply chain and their business cycle by making sure it's extremely efficient and that it has no fat to it. It has nothing, no excess. Everything is geared towards the goal of completing the job. This has allowed them to separate themselves from a lot of companies.
All right, so next we're going to talk about the industry structure. So industry structure, we kind of defined it in 5 different things: competitors, potential competitors, customers, substitute products, and suppliers. Some of the well-known competitors are obviously Sabrina just mentioned, Owens & Minor, Henry Sheen, Carolina Cardinal Health, and McKesson. All of these companies virtually provide the same service as AmerisourceBergen, and they handle all the operations similarly. Obviously, differences and specialties within each one. For potential competitors, we decided that companies like Walgreens and CVS, they run the risk of heavily impacting ABC. You got to think about it. If these companies decide to create a partnership with other companies, it could result in a lot of key competition in certain markets, certain products that they're distributing, possibly manipulating prices. So the customers for this industry and really our specific company include the people that are really in need of just medical supplies. So really no rhyme or reason to who buys it except for if they're in need of it. There is no specific thing. So their products are, they just purchase it from their desired distributor, really. They're to their convenience. So because there's not one specific product line or more so a product that these companies in the industry actually provide, a substitute would just be a different, or using a different supplier, a different company for their services. The suppliers for each of these companies vary depending on a couple different factors, but the majority of these companies purchase their products from multiple different companies. There's a lot of different vendors that they're getting these things from just because of how broad their spectrum is for their distributing products. So when you're dealing with this large scale of a distributing service, not all your products can be found at one supplier. So you're going to have to reach out a little bit and diversify. So some of the companies and the products are obviously blocked by circumstances that are associated with the FDA, but for a majority of the products, they come up from a bunch of different manufacturers. So you got to work around the laws and regulations associated with that. So this company is considered a oligopoly, which means that it has a limited competition just because of the market that it's in. It's very specific, very small. There's a very centralized number of producers and sellers that kind of deal with this stuff just because of all the issues. So the companies discussed earlier, the main competitors, and they're the only ones that have the really true capacity to be present in a sales process with this. So as you can see here, we have the graph that kind of it demonstrates exactly what kind of industry structure this is, and has the details below there. So a few very large firms, they have the pricing power, differentiated products, and high entry barriers, which means pretty much you got to have money to make money. They're almost set in stone, and it would be very hard for a different company, like I said, unless it was with a different partnership or a kind of a deal they have worked out with someone already in there to actually enter in this market. So what we're going to be looking at next here is the business strategy. And this is mainly associated with the AFI. We can roll on here. So the AFI framework, we're going to gaining and sustaining competitive advantage. That's huge in this industry. We're going to analyze it, formulate, and implement. So all aspects that make up this framework they're independent, and each assists the performance for a specific company in creating a competitive advantage. So the way we can break these down into independent aspects when you are analyzing them is the main goal here is to go and look at the vision. So the internal and external analysis, as well as your mission and values as a company. So without a deep understanding about the goal and really creating and honing in on a competitive advantage, it's going to be challenging in a market with so few competitors and obviously similar competitors. So the formulating focus on this, it can be corporate business. So a functional strategy, which is it really covers all the basis of how and why you operate as an organization. So innovation and thinking outside the box is a great way to create an edge with the competition, to kind of put yourself out there. Like I said, the desired customers, it's really just preference, convenience on what they want, because all the companies they provide the same things when you really get down to it. So having a healthy relationship with your suppliers, creating alliances with different companies, it can only help you. So as said earlier, with a market that is so tightly connected, so intertwined, competition is very fierce and really close on all the transactions. A simple process or a decision or an operating system that can have a major impact on the sales that you have and the relationship with your buyers. So when you're implementing your ideas and learning the things, one from observation and two, from maybe outside help, maybe some consulting, it's very important to hit on your structure, how you operate, the company culture, just the way that your day-to-day, your employees, it's big. If they're feeling good, doing good, then the company's going to do good. So, and really the biggest thing and what we found is the control in relation to who is overseeing and running what. So you want to have the right people in the right places there. So your business ethics, it could really make a difference on getting a large deal or losing it to a rival company. So I believe we're going to roll into the next slide here.
So we'll now be taking a look at corporate strategies. With this, we'll be looking at the core competencies and what products and services they offer. If you'd like to go to the next slide. So AmerisourceBergen provides drug distributions and related services designed to reduce costs and improve patient outcomes. Distributed a line of brands and generic pharmaceuticals, over-the-counter healthcare products, and home healthcare supplies and equipment to a wide variety of healthcare providers located throughout the United States, including acute care hospitals and healthcare system, independent and chain-related pharmacies, mail order facilities, physicians, clinics, and other alternative site facilities, as well as skilled nursing and assisted living centers. They also provide pharmaceuticals and pharmacy services to long-term care workers, compensation, and specialty drug patients. Their corporate citizen activities are well aligned with the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals. The SDGs are called for collaborative action to further the health and prosperities of the planet and all people. AmerisourceBergen changed organizational structure so that they can align the company with its customers' needs while accelerating growth and supporting its corporate strategy. As a result, its customers-facing offerings will be divided in two divisions: pharmaceutical distributions and strategic goal sourcing, and global commercialization services and animal health. On to the next slide, we'll be discussing one of the ways that AmerisourceBergen is utilizing core competencies is through blockchain technology. It's based on a peer-to-peer tautology. Blockchain is distributed ledger technology that allows data to be stored globally on thousands of servers while letting anyone on the network see everyone else's entries in near real time. That makes it difficult for one user to gain control of or game the network. Other industries seem to be hesitant to use this new technology, but as an article from 2019 stated from Heather Zink, Senior Vice President of Strategic Global Sourcing, was the biggest challenge regarding the block technology that the industry is called to overcome is belated adoption. A quote from her was, on one side, we have early adopters, and on the other side, companies that might not see the value in it or doesn't understand it is hard for them to move over. She encourages adoption by saying manufacturers to think about the supply chain sitting on two different types of platforms that are very different to manage. She also says that the manufacturers might spend years to bring a product to the market and then find themselves unable to engage the highly sophisticated supply chain, and that she really wants to encourage them to value keeping up with the supply chain as a core competency and enter the migrational path in order to allow this technology to save us time and cost and effort. I think for AmerisourceBergen, it falls under the building a new core competency to protect and extend current market positions. As for AmerisourceBergen's global strategy, we took a look into the Porter Diamond model for the global strategy. And with this, AmerisourceBergen has expanded its company to China, Philippines. As for the AmerisourceBergen's global strategy, we took a look into Porter's Diamond model. AmerisourceBergen has expanded its company to China, Philippines, Lithuania, and Serbia, which has led to the company having to consider many things before going global. To begin with, they had to evaluate the factor conditions. A growing demand for specialty services like time and temperature control transport was one of the ways they were able to provide a service in order to maximize competitive advantage. The next point that we looked at was the demand for a logistics partner that not only delivers best-in-class specialty logistics services, but also offers local and market expertise and resources. This will enable them to build relationships in local customs and regulatory authorities and better positions them to serve their customers' unique needs, such as growing demands for temperature control solutions. They were able to create competitive intensity through the creations of its international personalized supply chain teams that support three specialty areas: direct to patient, cell and gene therapy, and clinical trials execution. These technique experts will work directly with world's career customers, offering a combination of project management and customer service expertise to deliver a customized service tailored to their specific requirements and ultimately connect patients with the vital treatments they need. They do, however, have to compete with several companies that were stated earlier, such as Henry Schein, Cardinal Health, and McKesson. But AmerisourceBergen states that they are able to continue to evolve through investments and innovation in order to meet these demands of their patients. They pursue opportunities that enable them to optimize the supply chain in order to create national competitive advantage. Next, Sam will be taking us through suggestions for improvements.
In terms of improvements, we've developed some thoughts, and a lot of them are for them to maintain. So the first one is for them to continue to develop and maintain and improve their supply chain process. They do a great job of it now, but there's always, with new technology and new theories on supply chain and the process, there's always a better way to do things, and they strive to do that, and they need to continue to make sure that is important to them. For number two, we think they should create a more in-touch social media strategy and get more in touch with the public. Over the years that they're Instagram and their Twitter haven't really developed. They haven't seemed to put as much money into it. It seems to be done by just regular employees taking pictures of things on their phones. With a company that makes this much money, you'd think they'd put more money into their marketing and into their social media presence, and making sure that they are visible and clear to everybody, not just their patients. Lastly, we think they should continue to build relationships with GPOs. GPOs are group purchasing orders. They're coalitions or partnerships of small pharmacies or private practices in a certain area, or sometimes across the country, and they place orders as a whole. That way they can get the wholesale prices rather than paying hand over fist for the retail prices. So they have made good relationships with these GPOs, and they've began developing one of their own. They have a real care for these GPOs because they understand that the little guy needs help too. The little guy needs to be able to survive, and they want to support local businesses, as most companies should. But if they continue to develop these GPOs, these businesses will thrive, and it will help their marketing as well. So on to the next slide.
As for COVID-19, some steps that AmerisourceBergen has taken to address this is, if we can go to the next slide, is they enhance cleaning protocols, including EPA-approved disinfectants and additional support from third-party cleaners. They did implement Wally, which is the UV disinfectant robot, in their distribution centers to ensure maximize cleanliness and associate safety. They also have backup dependent care programs, and they enhance paid time off policies for associates needing to self-quarantine or care for family members. The company realizes its customers rely on them in order to be treated and to take care of their patients, which means that it is paramount that they ensure any disruptions to their operations do not impact their ability to deliver on to their customers' needs. Moving on to organizational design, we took a look in their structure. So when discussing AmerisourceBergen, you can look at their structure, and it is similar to the next slide. So this is the format that we decided they look like. And then as you can see, AmerisourceBergen's format on the next slide requires their board to consider specific risk topics through the year, including risks associated with government regulations, as well as with their strategies, objectives, business plans, operations, distributions of controlled substances, information technology, including cybersecurity and capital structure, among many others. AmerisourceBergen also consists of several distinct strategic business units, each with their own profit and loss responsibilities, is also operated more or less independently from one another. And each is led by a CEO who is responsible for the unit's business strategy and its day-to-day operations. Therefore, AmerisourceBergen is able to operate within the multiple division structure in order to achieve their goals, as well as the organizational goals, as they have demonstrated through how their information flows through their company. AJ is now going to take us on to the conclusion.
All right, so to wrap everything up, kind of listed our main points here on the screen, but AmerisourceBergen is set up as a oligopoly system that distributes medical supplies out to consumers. The organization has a lot of factors that have to be considered on a day-to-day operation just to keep the company in good legal standing. Because the market they have to deal with within is, you have to have such a competitive advantage is key, being successful in maintaining a presence with this industry. So with multiple companies practicing similar tactics, it's crucial to operate at highest level possible and really just to keep up with all the developing factors in this high-paced industry. So we discussed three major strategies that are important in regards of running a profitable business like this, and also discussed the difficulties that come with a global pandemic and a virus like COVID-19. that we're all having to deal with right now. So overall, AmerisourceBergen is an extremely interesting business. I think we all enjoyed kind of gaining a further understanding about this industry, and really just getting a dive in and figure out exactly where our stuff is coming from. I thought was pretty cool. I never had learned anything about this, but if we want to go to the next slide here, these are our resources. Found it kind of interesting. So ABC is very transparent within their websites, and the majority of our information came from actually their website, their company website. Very open, very willing to share all the stuff, you know, that Sam had mentioned earlier. It has a lot riding on the safety and security of their products, so they're very open for everything. We wanted to go to the next one here. So just to end it all out, just wanted to say thanks for listening. Thanks for all the help through this process. And we really just wanted to thank you for a great semester. So appreciate it.